Thank you for staying with us. And if you are just joining, you're watching Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. And now we'll be taking a look at another discussion on the program. And this time around, talking about the reactions that trailed the amendment of the 1999 Constitution by the National Assembly. Now, the 9th National Assembly in 2019 commenced a process to amend the 1999 Constitution on Tuesday. The Senate and House of Representatives voted on bills to amend the Constitution, but the process is not in its concluding phase just yet. We will be talking about what's next. And we are joined in the studio by Chairman Senate Committee on Special Duties, Senator Yusuf, Senator from Taraba State. Thank you for joining us on Daybreak.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Yes. Well, quite a lot, has trailed the amendment of the Constitution. This is an exercise that we see almost, I would say, in the life of every, assembly. A lot of issues are raised, but beyond what will happen at the National Assembly is what also happens at the subnational level. That is talking about state assemblies when these bills are transmitted. So quite a number of issues were raised. But first, let's talk about the ones that were turned down by the lawmakers. Specifically here, talking about the gender bills. This, advocacy for an increase of the number of seats for women, at the National Assembly to creating about 111 seats designated for just women. That didn't pull through. Maybe you should take us through why it failed, at that level.
Well, thank you very much. You can see that why it failed is because how do you implement that? How? When you come to a constituency, how do you pick number of women that will now be contesting for senatorial seats or seats of members House of Representatives? How do you pick? How do you pick it? So the procedure itself of picking the participation of women, is a very, very, difficult, if not impossible.
Is it impossible? I mean, it could be rotational, maybe some kind of rotational kind of system.
That's why you have another problem, because nothing in the present dispensation that has actually obstructed or prevented women in participating. I mean, we should not, begin to degrade women and say that, look, until a particular thing is allocated to you, you cannot be able to make it. No. So I mean, from my own point of view, I voted no, no doubt about it. Not that I have anything against the women. I have mother, I have wives, I have female children. So not that I did that, but how do you implement? You cannot make a law that you cannot implement, or it becomes a very, very difficult. How do you rotate? Where do you start from?
Okay, so now right now, female representation in parliament is actually minimal, and right now that these bills have actually been rejected, what plans does the Constitutional Review have to correct the gap, and what kind of impact will this have in the wider society as well?
Well, first of all, we look at the relationship between the Senate and the House of Representatives. I have not looked at how the House voted. I don't know if there is an opposite voting in the House of Representatives, then it will come to concurrence between the Senate and the House of Representatives. That is the first thing that will be done. So a concurrence committee, will be set up for the houses to look at it once again. Now, in the wider aspect of it, we do it again. We had, public hearing. Let us find the best way that we can make women participate effectively, in parliamentary process in this country. So I think the wider society, we need to ginger our females. They need to come very, very strong. They need to advocate a lot. They need to educate, or we need to educate our women folk to understand, what parliamentary process is. We need to look at what is our culture, what our tradition, what's the religion, aspect of it. Is it hindering? If it is hindering, let's find how to educate. We have women all over the world, culturally they are doing very, very well, religiously they are doing very, very well. So we have to look at it in that context. So
but this is an advocacy that has, been ongoing for decades, and it doesn't look like the change in the narrative is forthcoming as expected. So maybe we need to take some deliberate steps, some deliberate measures, to be able to make that change happen, and which is by, one of the ways is by creating these special seats, for women. So what are the best ways, that we can implement this? Since you said this is
if you want to make things happen, you can come by evolution or you can come by revolution. We are coming by revolution, and we have to come by evolution. If you want to make things happen, and they must happen at a particular point in time, you must educate, you must advocate. Nigeria is, how many years old is Nigeria? America today is over 200 years old. I mean, the democracy of America. How old is the democracy of Nigeria? So I don't think we should be in a hurry. We should go into serious advocacy, enlightenment, educate, our societies, educate, our women folk, let them come out. There is no man in that Senate that I know of who didn't feel bad about that. But it is how do you implement a law that you are making, which will become a very, very difficult thing to implement. So let us continue with our advocacy. Let us continue with our education process. So I think that is pure and simple.
All right. Well, a number of issues also, were raised at the National Assembly. Now, there's this issue of, autonomy for the local councils and the state legislators. The other time it was raised, but somehow it didn't pull through at the subnational level, which is quite surprising. One will think that governance at that level will welcome this whole idea. State legislators will welcome the idea, of having that kind of, independence from, the state governments. But that didn't happen. Why are we seeing such drawbacks? Because clearly it is.
Well, thank you very much. Again, it's a matter of, the society or the civil society organization, putting a lot of pressure on the subnational level. You let the governors know that they will not continue, to have full control or a grip, on the local government autonomy or local government administration, whatever you call it. So for me, we have done our own. We did it in the 8th Assembly. We are doing it in the 9th Assembly. Let Nigerians know it is not the National Assembly that is upholding this. It is, the governors, and it is the members' House of Assembly. My take on this is that the members' House of Assembly should come boldly and tell Nigerians, look, we are independent of the executive. That is what we do, in the National Assembly. So for governor, take it or leave it, for my own understanding is that it is the members of houses of assembly that will actually, do the job. The governor will not go into the house and sit down and say, no, this and that. All what he will do is to call and lobby. So why should the members' House of Assembly, succumb to something that is very, very, unpopular?
And it looks like the governors are doing a pretty good job in terms of lobbying the state lawmakers, by getting them to actually to decline such, bills that intends to empower them even more.
Again, it boils down to education. It boils down, separation of powers. Let the houses of assembly know that they have separation of powers. They have their own power to make laws. If governor is coming to lobby, they should look at the wider society. Did governor vote for them? The society, voted for them. The citizens voted for them. They are responsible to the citizens and not to the government. To the governor, they have their checks and balances between the executive and the legislature. So for me, if this thing doesn't pass, I will not blame the governors. I will blame the members' houses of assembly. We had meeting with them. We have educated them on these bills, how they will pass it. So it's now up to them. Nigerians are putting their eyes on them. So they should reflect the yearnings of the Nigerians as they legislate in the various houses of assembly.
Okay, still talking about local government or autonomy. Are the systems, is the local government system strong enough, to be able to deal with financial responsibility?
How do you make them strong? By them not participating, you make them strong by giving them room to participate. That's the only way you can give them room to be strong financially. Who said? The reason why probably local governments are not finding, are very good people, to run local governments because of this kind of things. You cannot have, an educated man, being bullied around by a governor who feels that, this thing should be run in a particular way. So for me, the only way you can do it, is to put this kind of law and put it into practice and give it, a very good education and enlightenment. I'm sure we'll get all the insecurity that we have in this country, the failure of the local government administration. So for us to do it, we must have, educated people, enlightened people, progressive people to come and run the local governments. And the only way they can, if you give this autonomy to local governments.
All right. Now, another issue that we saw in the last review of the Constitution and is reappearing again is the issue of immunity for principal officers of the National Assembly, talking about the Senate President and the Speaker, and also drafting them into the membership of the Security Council and all of that. That didn't pull through. Why is it so important? For the principal officers of the National Assembly to have that immunity?
Well, first of all, you know that it is a bill, it's a private member bill of the Senate and the House of Representatives, seeking, to have, also the presiding officers of the National Assembly, just like the presiding officers of the executive, to also have immunity. Personally, I don't believe in this, criminal immunity. I think we should even remove criminal immunity on each and every, presiding officers of the government, whether they're in executive or whether they are in House of, Parliament, or they are in the judiciary. So that is my own basic point. But the reason why, in my own opinion, it might have failed is because the feelings that, why would the presiding officer have immunity? The presiding officer in the chamber, has a lot of immunity, So for me, I think, there is no need, for that, immunity for a presiding officer.
Okay, now, railway, airports, and prisons have been moved from exclusive list to, concurrent list. Share your thoughts on that.
Well, fine. Even now, there are so many state governments, that are constructing airports. So why do you want to keep it? Why would you prevent a state that has resources to build airports, from constructing airport? Also, our railway, these are transportation. These are means of increasing, commerce, in the country. So for me, I think it is only natural, that you put this thing in the concurrent list. Any state that has the means and the resources to do, a railway, let them do it. If they do not have, they shouldn't afford to do it. So I think it's a correct decision, the sponsors of this bill that have done. And I think also it's a correct decision, for us to have supported that, at least in the Senate. I don't know what the House did, to be honest, with due respect. So it is a great thing that will happen to this country. Commerce will be improved because railway is transportation. Airports are means of air transportation, and I think people who have even the airports that we have in this country today, there are so many of them that are moribund. Probably the state government can say, look, let us take over, negotiate with federal government, and have concessions and take them over. So I think it's a natural and it's a better thing that has happened to this, to our transportation sector.
All right. We also have the issue of summons, and requesting for the president to appear before the chambers, either the president or maybe the governors in the case of states, to appear and answer questions regarding issues that the lawmakers have powers to legislate upon. That issue is generating some reactions as well. Why is it so important for, the National Assembly or the state assemblies to have that power?
Again, it is a matter of education and enlightenment. What is wrong if Mr. President comes to the National Assembly and say, I'm offering myself, to clear, certain issues?
People have, the reservations is raised regarding the word summon.
Well,
when you say summon, it gives a certain kind of connotation, and so some are not really comfortable with that.
Well, probably it is a parliamentary, word to use. Someone is, for me, my understanding is that, you give it a legislative, enforcement. A sort of, Mr. President, you are invited, to come, let us, interact. How many of us, sit down with Mr. President on security issues, on national issues, and interact with him? So for me, it's a matter of education. It's a matter of, doing our mandates well. It's a matter of maturity. It does happen in America. It does happen in certain places. Why will it be difficult for Nigerian president, with due respect, with all the intentions to do the goal? Whereas there's a fear that, maybe you are calling Mr. President to malign him or to create, certain, questions that may expose, certain things. But it is in respect of our duties as members of National Assembly that we are calling Mr. President to explain certain national issues.
But what is not clear, though, is what happens if, in the event of an invitation extended to the President to appear and he doesn't appear, as to what will follow? Are there any repercussions?
Again, that is why I say it's a matter of education and enlightenment. Why will Mr. President not refuse?
I mean, it happens. I mean, we've had similar incidents just recently where the President was actually invited last year sometime.
Yes, it did happen.
And he didn't show up because he was advised not to by some of his associates.
Because there was no proper communication, there's no proper enlightenment, there's no proper education. Mr. President does not know what he is coming to say, what he is coming to do. So for me, for you to call Mr. President, you must be very, very explicit.
Wasn't it clear that there were issues of security in the country at the time? And lawmakers felt concerned that the situation is, deteriorating, and then they felt the need to call the President to come and, answer questions as regard where we are and what's happening regarding the security issues. So it was pretty clear what the President was going to do at the National Assembly.
So it appears to you, but for so many it didn't appear that way. Because why would you, call or summon Mr. President to come and discuss, issues that are not very, very clear? Has it been hijacked by the opposition, or what is it? Because for me, I would have I supported the action of Mr. President because it wasn't clear to me. What is the agenda? Has the president fully involved? Has he been informed? Was there any interaction, communication before the president was asked to come, or you just passed a resolution, Mr. President, come? So there are processes and procedures. It's a matter of maturity, education, and enlightenment.
When you say that, it gives it room for interpretation by whoever is concerned. So the President in the office could decide that it's not clear, even when a letter is written, that we want you to come and address A, B, C, D. He can decide, well, it's not entirely clear to him, what could happen. So that's also a possibility,
Yes.
To what extent, what education are we talking about here?
My brother, the relationship between the executive and the legislature in the 8th Assembly and the 9th Assembly are different. Very, very different. In the 8th Assembly, it was a hostile relationship between the presiding officers of National Assembly and the executive. And
we cannot guarantee that this may not happen again.
Well,
there could be another time where you have a president who does not actually see eye to eye with the National Assembly. So how do we...
I talked about maturity. Maturity of the legislature is that you sit down, you iron out things behind the curtains before you come to the fore. So I believe And I know as we go along and we're educated, without even summoning Mr. President will want to come to National Assembly and share some views.
No, that leaves that to chance. That leaves that to based on relationship of the lawmakers. But if we are putting this into law, there have to be clarity. There have to be, I mean, all the ambiguities need to be get rid of, so that it's clearly spelled what are the conditions for the president appearing and what will happen if the president doesn't appear. And that is not being made, clear in this amendment.
If it is a constitutional issue and the president, has been called, due process have been followed and he refused to come, it is an impeachable offense because it is a breach of constitution. So pure and simple. So, but that again falls under the ambit of maturity of legislative relationship with the executive.
Okay, now, so once this constitution is reviewed, will it be capable of, solving the immediate needs of Nigeria?
I believe the constitution, should be dynamic. It should follow, ways on alleviating, the difficult challenges, that Nigerians, are operating. So I'm sure, there are certain sections, just like the transportation sector, is now moved to, a concurrent list. I'm sure, it will add value to the Nigerians. So also, the local government autonomy, administrative autonomy, I'm sure it will do better. If we had it long time ago, we would not have this kind of, terrible insecurity that we have. So it's going to improve the life of Nigerians.
So will we now focus on resource, resource generation rather than, resource sharing?
Well, of course, you have to cook before you share and eat. So let us now imbibe the culture of cooking what is right and what is better for the Nigerian people. So again, for me, the amendment of the constitution, has become, apparent, has become, important, and a lot of effort has been done. A lot of consultations have been done. We have been on this, for over 9 months, and we have contacted, we have consulted, each. We have done, public hearing and all this. I believe every Nigerian has been given the opportunity to participate and to get involved, and it's going to improve, our lot in this country.
All right. Now, one other bill that was proposed but rejected by the Senate is the one about diaspora voting. I mean, we've talked about, attracting investment into Nigeria and how we need, Nigerians residing abroad need to send in their money. So if they are going to send in their money into an economy, isn't it also as important for them to have a say in what happens politically?
First of all, are we voting locally because we are investing? We are not. We are exercising our civic responsibility. So if the process is right, of course the diaspora voting will be adopted. What we are saying that it is not ripe at this point in time. For certain logistics reasons, whether it's electronics or whatever. So we are saying that it is the time that is not right. It is not a matter of you are bringing your money and therefore, you will vote because you are bringing in your money. First and foremost, you are Nigerian. That is fundamental.
So what will make us ripe for this? I mean,
education.
I thought we all know. You talk about education, but what about the electronical systems that we are now, adopting in our electoral processes? Isn't that enough to guarantee diaspora voting?
Yes, it may be enough, but in the opinion of so many of us, it is not yet enough. There are so many, areas in this country, even inside the country, that we have, difficulties in communicating, difficulties, where we have the operators, they are not present. It is not every place in my own constituency that you can connect. So even locally, you are having, these very big challenges. And then you want to bring in diaspora, you are adding, much more. I'm saying as we go along, as Nigeria becomes more and more active in communication, then, we should involve them.
Okay, now, when let's talk about the assent now. When the Electoral Act Amendment Bill was given to the president, there was like a delay before he assented, to that particular bill. And now, what happens if the president refuses to assent to, all these alterations?
Well, there are two ways to it. If Mr. President refuses to assent on the alterations, it's either we override, if we can, or we review and then take it back to him. So like I said, a lot of things are going around behind the scene to say, look, Mr. President, this is the purpose of this bill. This is what it's going to do. This is how it's going to do. This is how it's going to impact, positively. And I'm sure Mr. President, is a Nigerian. He'll look at it, what is best for this country, and he'll also do his consultation, because that is the meaning of the presidential system of government, checks and balances between the executive and the legislature. So I believe he will look at it passionately and do a lot of consultation. So it will be very difficult for Mr. President to turn down each and every bill. That is why we have 68 bills, and each bill that has passes through will go through houses of assembly. Once they pass them, they bring it back, and then we push it to Mr. President.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak this morning. We have to end the discussion because of our time. We appreciate your coming.
Okay, thank you very much. Really appreciate to be here once again.
Thank you. Well, we've been speaking with the Chairman, Senate Committee on Special Duties, Senator Yusuf A. Yusuf, talking to us about what's next after the passing of some of those bills by the National Assembly as it concerns the constitutional amendment. With that, we've come to the end of the program for today. Join us tomorrow on Daybreak Extra.
Yes.
Yes, for another dose of the morning show here. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Ayuba Ilya.
And I'm Dashan Husseina Usman. Thank you so much.